Hi,
Sorry
honey.
to interrupt you. I had a little trouble turning on my screen, and there she is. There is Chef
Hi.
It's
AJ.
AJ.
Hi.
Hello,
Hi.
AJ. Hey.
You
Good
know,
morning.
I know Chef AJ. We did a podcast together, and I follow her. And before I go into her accolades, I just wanted to talk from my heart because, as I tell everyone, AJ, that our heart tells us the truth. It knows. It knows fear, it knows joy, it knows everything. So, what I want to say to everybody listening is that I know that this woman is the ultimate in teaching all of us how to take care of our bodies and how to eat properly, and if we want to, lose weight along the way. She is a specialist, and I will tell you why. There are so many doctors, as we know, they sit in labs and they experiment with mice and rats, and they give them foods and this, that, and the other. Chef AJ, for 43 years of her life, had a horrific weight problem. She has been through everything you can imagine when it comes to losing weight and learning to eat healthy. She is absolutely, you are an authority. You're an authority. And you should be so proud of yourself, that what you've done for your own life and how you're giving back to others in such a marvelous way. And also that after people hear your story, they trust you 100% because you really are the real McCoy. And so many people do suffer not only with weight, but also poor health because they don't eat properly. So AJ, now going to the accolades. So AJ creates and teaches and prepares meals, and she'll teach you, I don't know if she will today, how to really transform your health. She deals with cravings, she deals with food addiction, and she deals with the emotional side of eating. So she is a teacher. She's also a creator. She's created the ultimate weight loss program, Healthy Taste of LA, and she has her own YouTube cooking show, The Chef and Dietitian. Okay. She's the author of the best-selling book, The Secret of Ultimate Weight Loss. So without further ado, I would like to present to you with pleasure and with my friendship, because I have to tell you something, AJ, before you start. I just had my colonoscopy, which I wrote you about. And I attribute my good health to AJ. And when I was finished, I went, thank you, AJ. So take it away.
Well, thank you so much. Yeah, that's terrific that you had such a good report. Now,
Yeah.
hopefully you won't have to have another, because they're not fun, are they?
No,
No.
but we have to be proactive with our health.
Yeah, especially, you know, this year I'm actually, I host an annual summit called the Truth About Weight Loss Summit, but this year I'm also doing a second summit called it's called the GI Health Summit, and I've interviewed probably 30 gastroenterologists right now, and they all talk about the importance, especially since the death of Chadwick Boseman, because he was lower than the age that is even recommended to get one. And so they seem to they keep lowering the age to lower and lower and lower. Because, and most of it is because people don't eat fruits and vegetables. People don't eat fiber. And if they ate fiber, they wouldn't have colon cancer. Because if you look at parts of Africa where they still eat the traditional diet, they can't find a single case.
Yes, and you tell your story about you had all these polyps. You were
They call
bleeding.
it pre-colon. So when I'm 60 and a half actually. And when I was 43, I woke up with, I was bleeding. I had what they call edematous polyps, and they're the kind that if they don't remove them, they turn into cancer. And they couldn't remove them during the procedure because my colon was just, they said I had a dirty colon. And that was with the prep. It's because for 43 years, I didn't eat a single fruit and vegetable. But the interesting thing is just by changing my diet to one that was unprocessed, because I had been vegan before this. I was vegan for 26 years and it didn't save me from getting these polyps, but I changed it to a junk food vegan diet, to a whole food diet, which was unprocessed completely, fruits, vegetables, whole grains, legumes, nuts, seeds, that kind of thing. And then within 6 months, the polyps disappeared and they had no explanation for it.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was exciting. And they say, oh, just, medical miracle. No, it's not. I mean, yeah, well, there is. The miracle is fruits and vegetables. And so that's my mission, is not to get everybody vegan. Of course, that would be nicer for the animals and the planet, but just to get everybody eating vegetables and fruit, primarily vegetables. Nobody eats vegetables. I mean, except for me.
I do.
Oh, no, good.
I love vegetables.
All right, well, good. But what people say, what a serving is, to me, a serving of vegetables is a pound. I mean, that's how many I eat at every meal. And I think that people need to eat at least 2 pounds a day as a minimum. And most people don't get, I mean, you guys might be extraordinary, but most Americans eat less than 3% of their calories from vegetables. Congress actually said that ketchup is a vegetable because you put it on your French fries or you put the tomato sauce on your pizza. Because let's just say most kids don't eat vegetables. So. Anyway, and you notice I don't know where you guys live, but during the pandemic, we went to the stores and they were sold out of all the crappy food and they had tons of kale and collards. I mean, it was like, great, this is great for me. I can get my food,
Yeah.
Yeah.
We had
done
trouble
that
getting
too.
vegetables.
Did you?
Yeah.
Yeah. The veggies were sold out first.
Where do you live?
South coast of New South Wales, Australia.
Oh, yeah. I guess maybe it's just different countries. It's different,
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right.
I mean, they were, a lot of the frozen vegetables were sold out, like the corn and stuff, but the fresh, nobody was taking that. It was funny,
Yeah.
And yet, and the funny thing is yet all the toilet paper was sold out, but most Americans are so constipated. What do they need toilet paper for? I mean, seriously, that they don't poop anyway. There was a very famous doctor in Uganda named Dr. Dennis Burkitt, and he said, if you pass small stools, you need large hospitals. So I'd say America is a constipated nation. But yeah, it's interesting. Yeah. But listen, I'm not trying to blame or shame people because I didn't like them either. I didn't eat them till I was like 43, but I didn't, I really didn't know. I mean, I knew my diet couldn't have been healthy. I was eating Coke, having Coke Slurpees for breakfast and Dr. Pepper for lunch, but it's just so funny how nobody ever said anything to me when I was fat and eating crap. But then once I got thin and healthy, everybody's a nutritionist. Like, oh, it's so funny how that works. But I think it's because of the food addiction piece. It's like no alcoholic wants to be told, excuse me, did you know that alcohol is probably not good for you? Yeah, I mean, they probably know, but they don't want to hear it. So maybe somebody did tell me. It's funny because I was thinking about it because when you look back and then you think, there were clues that maybe I had a problem with food or at least certain foods. And I remember in 2002, it was a year before my diagnosis, we had moved from an apartment, we had bought a townhouse, and we had a housewarming party. And so my veterinarian came, and he's a very healthy guy. He's about 9 years older than me, plays golf. He's always been at a slender weight and very active. And I had these candy dishes, these decorative candy dishes all around the house. I had probably about 7 of them because before I had become a chef, I had done some property management. And every year, this guy named Ed would give us like a little, kind of crystal kind of candy dish. Maybe it was this big. So they were very pretty. And candy dishes can be used for things other than candy. You could put I don't know, stones in them or candles. But anyway, the funny thing is so I had 7 of these all around, and they all were filled with candy, candies that I like, Goldenberg's peanut chews, whatever it was. And like he said to me, he goes, I have never seen this much candy in a person's house. And now when I think back, it's like, that is a lot of candy. That's a lot of candy dishes for, like a 2-bedroom condo kind of thing. But, you don't think about it at the time, because that's what I ate was candy. That was a food group.
Yeah. Can you tell the women your story?
Well, okay. I mean, that's okay. So it's, I'm going to do the Reader's Digest version because that's kind of what the first chapter 1 of my book is it. So because, I don't want to, to me, it's kind of boring because it's like, I've told it a million times, but if you haven't heard it, where the best place to see it is on YouTube, because I did what I thought it was an epic talk for John McDougall called From Fat Vegan to Skinny Bitch. But the Reader's Digest version is, I was born in 1960 to a morbidly obese mother and a normal weight father. And I say that because I really do believe that genetics loads the gun, but it's your diet and lifestyle that pulls the trigger. That said, when you have one parent that's overweight or obese, you're more predisposed to it. And if you have 2, it's even greater. So I'm not blaming my parents or my genes, but it does make it more difficult when you have a history of that in your family. So I remember being the only fat kid in school in the 60s. So now they say something like 1 out of every 3 children under the age of 18 is overweight or obese. But in the 1960s, there weren't that many fat kids yet. If you look at my pictures, from kindergarten to high school, and high school, there's a lot of people, but like in grade 1 through K through 6, it's like usually like 40 kids in a class. There's 1 fat kid every year, and that fat kid was me. And I didn't really get teased or bullied because I was very funny, and people liked me. I was class clown, so I don't really remember getting teased or bullied the way kids do today. But I didn't get a boyfriend either. I didn't get asked to the prom, those kind of things. So when I'm trying to think the time frame. I don't always remember the exact year it happened, but I battled with eating disorders. I became anorexic, in my teens, and then bulimic in my 20s. And so, it was a lifelong discordant relationship with food. And it really wasn't until I was in my 50s, early 50s, that I found peace in this area. And that really was going to a place in Santa Rosa, California that still exists. And I actually spent the last 10 years working there. I'm no longer working there, but it's called True North. It's in Santa Rosa, California. And it was founded by Dr. Alan Goldhammer and his wife, Dr. Jennifer Morano. And it's a water fasting center, but I did not water fast. You don't have to water fast to go there. People go there with very serious conditions like cancer and autoimmune disease and diabetes and high blood pressure, and they water fast to reverse these conditions. But you don't have to fast to go there, but just so you know, because I never did. And that's when I really learned the truth about food and what is food and what isn't food. And I learned about this concept called the pleasure trap, which is a book that Dr. Goldhammer wrote with Dr. Lyle. And it's like, my whole life changed. And I just wish I had known it sooner, because it's so funny because I live in a retirement, Susan, there's a lot of these retirement communities in the desert, and they're very nice in a lot of ways. The amenities and the people are very nice, but they're not very healthy. And I think that, I don't know if it's the age group or that the desert is just less interested in health than LA was, but there's so many people here that are just, it's like that movie. There was a movie, a Disney movie, maybe it wasn't Disney, Pixar. I don't know if you guys remember a movie called Wall-E. It was where people were like in these hover chairs. They were like in recliners, and it was like a prophetic movie where the people are getting heavier and heavier and sicker and sicker. And what I've learned from all the doctors that I talk to when I interview from these summits is that it's not just about health at every size or making people feel bad, but with this pandemic, these are the people that are not doing well, the people that have the comorbidities of and I don't know why, because I'm not a doctor, but when you look at them statistically, of all the age groups, the people that are overweight or obese are either dying or not doing very well. So it's, I think what we've done is we've normalized obesity in our society lately. We've kind of swung the pendulum the other way. Not that people should ever be fat shamed, or, it's funny because I get thin shamed all the time. It's hilarious to me that I cannot win, when I'm always at the wrong place at the wrong time. When I was fat, nobody was fat. Now that I'm thin, nobody's thin, but it's just, I don't know what to tell you, but I do believe that what I learned in life is that what you eat really does matter, that it's not just luck. It's not just, I mean, yes, luck exists and genetics are important, but you can change your fate. You can't change your genes, but you can change the expression of your genes. They call it epigenetics by changing your
Yep.
diet. And I have seen so many miracles, not just in terms of people I've worked with that have lost 100 to 300 pounds, but I'm talking about the serious stuff like people reversing diabetes and autoimmune disease and even certain cancers, things that they're told are incurable by, you know, the power of lifestyle medicine. Food is medicine. And, but, you know, I want to retire now, but people just keep wanting me to talk to them. And it's like, the answer is just eat your damn vegetables. That's the brief answer, but it's more than that too. I actually just got a t-shirt. It hasn't arrived yet, but I got so tired of saying it. It says, eat your damn vegetables, and it's pink. And it's like, you don't need to interview me. Just eat your vegetables. But yeah, it's been an interesting life. You know, what can I tell you? I didn't expect to be whatever I am now, an educator, or a YouTuber, or whatever. I wanted to be a veterinarian. But that didn't happen. Became a vegetarian instead.
So, Chef AJ, I remember before you and I did a podcast, I'll never forget this picture. You were in a kitchen and you had a bowl, huge, and it was filled with all kinds of greens. And then in your other hand, you held 5 almonds or some kind of, and you looked at everyone, that whoever was watching, and you said, see this hand? 5 almonds. See this hand? Look at all these delicious veggies. And then you told the calories.
Yeah, it's calorie density. Yeah, that's actually, when I lecture, that's my favorite thing to talk about, because it's just the science, it's math. And I remember when I first learned about it like 10 years ago from Dr. Doug Lyle, and I said, oh, I'm fat because, you know, I had trauma and I blah, blah, blah. Not that I'm diminishing trauma at all in anyone other than or even in myself, but he explained to me that I didn't have emotional problems, that I had math problems. And when they explained to me something called calorie density, which is a little bit different than counting calories, there's this chart on the back of my book that explains calorie density. It was a game changer for me, because I never had to diet again. I never had to worry about how much I ate, or when I ate, or why I ate. I just had to change what I was eating. And the thing that's so cool about calorie density is that you don't have to memorize how many calories are in a cup of blueberries or a half a cup of rice. You just have to know that there are only a limited number of food groups. There's only a certain number of food groups, and that these food groups vary in calorie density from about 100 calories a pound to 4,000 calories a pound. So if you change what they call the average calorie density of the foods you're eating, and if you did that by as little as 500 calories per pound a day, you could easily lose a pound a week without going hungry. And this is all really from the work of somebody who's one of my heroes, who I finally had the privilege of interviewing. Her name is Dr. Barbara Rolls. And she has a laboratory at Penn State University where she studies human eating behavior from people all over the world. And what she discovered is that everyone eats the same amount of food per day by weight. Now, that doesn't mean that I eat the same amount as a 300-pound bodybuilder, but that all of us have a certain amount, and we're talking by weight, of food that we eat a day to not feel hungry. And for most human beings, that's 3 to 5 pounds of food is what we need to fill our tank several times a day. Our stomach is about the size of a cantaloupe. It holds about a liter of food, which is about 4.22 cups. And that this food varies in caloric density from 100 calories a pound on one end, which are vegetables, non-starchy vegetables, and to 4,000 calories a pound on the other end, which is oil. And that was just like, it's just so eye-opening. So just by, like, for example, like when you just stop using oil, not telling you not to eat whole food fats like nuts, seeds, and avocado, but for the amount of calories in 1 mere tablespoon of oil, you can have more than 2 pounds of zucchini or cherry tomatoes. I mean, and the thing is what's going to fill you up more? And the answer is what's going to fill you up more is a whole food that has the fiber and water intact. And oil is a highly processed food. There's nothing wrong with eating corn or olives or flax or soy where the oil came from. But when you take a whole food, and process it into a processed food, everything that was good about that food, the fiber, water, vitamins, minerals, phytochemicals, antioxidants, micronutrients, are thrown away, and you're left with the non-nutritive, the caloric portion. So it takes 16 ears of corn to make 1 tablespoon of corn oil. I don't know anybody that can eat 16 ears of corn. And so just learning this made a huge difference. Also learning about the importance of water in food. So, people, if you just drink a bunch of water, you might feel full for 20 minutes, but water will exit your digestive tract too quickly. So water by itself doesn't have satiety, but when water is in food, it makes you feel full, because this concept of water attached to the fiber in food creates bulk, which is what creates satiety, that feeling of fullness that tells you to stop eating. Well, if most Americans are eating 92% of their calories from animal products and processed food, neither of those categories have any fiber. There is 0 fiber in any animal product, and pretty much 0 nutrients, and there's 0 fiber in any processed food. So like back to Dr. Burkett, most Americans are on a sorely fiber deficient diet. So if you make sure that everything you eat has fiber and water, which pretty much only comes from plants, you're going to feel full, and you're going to feel full on fewer calories. And when you understand calorie density, if you wanted to, you could eat twice as much food as you're eating now and yet take in half as many calories. So I mean, for somebody that likes to eat and likes to eat large portions, this was like every day is Christmas now. Now, there are people that don't like to eat large portions, but usually they're people that maybe that have gastric bypass. They can't eat large portions. But I think that eating large portions is much more satisfying than eating small portions. And that's what most diets have you do, is just eat whatever you want, but eat less. But then eventually you're just going to be hungry and you're going to eat more. And so I don't know, this was a game changer for me.
Well, is it true that tomatoes have the most water? What veggies have the most water?
Well, zucchini, if I had to guess, and I could probably look this up, I want to say zucchini, just because when I cook zucchini in my pressure cooker, like even at 0 minutes, it comes to mush. But pretty much, vegetables and
Stevie, don't tweet.
Even fruit has a ton of water too. And that's what really fruits and vegetables are, water and nutrients and vitamins. They are mostly water. I think something like 90% water. I mean, the only fruit that really doesn't have a lot of water would be avocado. That's also one that's high in fat. And I'm trying to think, but pretty much all vegetables are mostly water.
Yeah, how about watermelon?
Oh my God, I love watermelon. I do a daily show on YouTube at 11 o'clock, and today the chef made watermelon ceviche, and it looked amazing. And he was actually in a hotel room, and he still was able to prepare this recipe. But right now, the watermelon, it's getting towards the end where it's not as good. But when it's in season and you get those people to pick it out for you at Costco, oh my God, I can eat a whole watermelon a day. Watermelon is pretty much water, and it's delicious.
Question?
Sure.
AJ, how do you prepare your vegetables then? Like I do use olive oil, and, and drizzle a little, because we do roasted vegetables almost every day.
Sure.
But I think about that because I know it has a lot of calories. So
so here's the thing. So believe it or not, you don't need oil to cook. The only thing you really need oil for is to fry, and even then you don't, because I have a machine called a Breville air fryer. So when I roast vegetables, there's a couple of ways I roast them. Sometimes I do it in the air fryer, and sometimes I just do it in the oven on a piece of parchment paper or a silpat. You really don't need anything, honestly. You don't. And if you really wanted to put something on it, one of my favorite things to put on vegetables are balsamic vinegars, but really good ones, not the one from, not that there's anything wrong with the one from Costco, but the one from Costco, which is very popular, it's 6% acidity. And so if you're somebody that likes that sour taste, you might like that vinegar. So go ahead and use it. But I prefer what they call reduced balsamic vinegars. And you can reduce vinegar yourself. You could take a cheaper one like Costco and cook it for like an hour and cook it down, and you're reducing it. So the ones they sell that I buy, like California Balsamics or Napa Valley Natural, these are 4% acidity. And so they are very sweet, but the sweetness comes just from the grapes. They're about 30 to 35 calories per tablespoon, but those are fantastic drizzled over roasted vegetables. And sometimes I like to actually make a marinade out of mustard and balsamic vinegar, and I'll roast my vegetables in that, or I'll toss them with that afterwards. So that's one thing I do. If you cook them in an air fryer, It changes the taste completely. Like I'll put anything in an air fryer: rutabagas, turnip, broccoli, zucchini, and or grilling them. But you know, it's funny because when I was in LA, I would do a lot of consulting work at restaurants like Sharky's and Hugo's, and because they were trying to get healthier menus. And at first, the chefs would be very upset, like, "Oh, you got to have oil to cook." And once I taught them how, they were like so excited because number one, they were saving a lot of money. The cleanup of all their stuff was easier because it's very hard to get oil off. You try to get it off your hands, try to get it off your pans, but they didn't even notice. So in other words, they were taking the oil out of Hugo's restaurant, which is like a fine dining restaurant in LA.
Yeah.
3 locations. They were able to take the oil out of all their sauces, their tikka masala sauce, their marinara sauce, out of their soups, out of their salad dressings. They didn't tell the clientele because they didn't want any preconceived notions. Nobody noticed. And you know, see, if you've ever tasted oil, it doesn't taste like anything by itself.
Yeah.
Because if oil was that great, people would just drink it. When you need oil, I mean, really, it coats the taste buds of your tongue. So when you use oil, you got to use a lot more salt. And so it's just, it's amazing how more you can taste the food when you stop using oily dressings and oil. I don't know where this idea of that we have to have oil to cook came about, because our ancestors really didn't eat oil. I remember when I tried researching this, it was during the Olympic Games. Oil was a prize. It wasn't a food. It was a prize that the athletes would adorn their bodies with. When we started eating oil of the food, I want to say it was the 50s or the 60s. And I'm trying to think of this lecture by Dr. Hans Diehl when he said it started like Crisco became a thing. But people like the taste of high fat, high calorie foods because they produce what's called, anytime you eat or anytime you have a pleasurable experience, you produce this neurotransmitter in your brain called dopamine. And the more high fat, the high calorie the food, the more dopamine. So people like it better because they get more of a hit from it. But you know, I have no problem with people using fat, but I want their fat to be in the whole food form: nuts, seeds, and avocados, you know, making dressings out of tahinis and nut butters rather than drizzling the processed oil. There is a wonderful movie, I don't know if it's on Netflix anymore, it's called Forks Over Knives, which can explain how oil can harm what's called your endothelial cells. These line your vasculature. But there's a great book by a doctor named Dr. Caldwell B. Esselstyn Jr. called Prevent and Reverse Heart Disease. And he talks about why oil is deleterious, even to people without heart disease. So that might be an interesting, you know, you don't have to read the books. Even if you go on YouTube now and just put in Dr. Esselstyn, no oil, he'll give you this wonderful graphic. But yeah, I mean, you can learn to like food better without it. And it's not, you don't, I remember when I was a pastry chef, we used a lot of, it was vegan, but it was like a vegan Crisco. And I remember I often chose to work the later night shift just because it was better for my schedule. And the dishwasher, he would go home like at 10 o'clock. And when I would have to wash out the Cuisinart by myself in between recipes, it never, you know, that stickiness of the shortening, it never came out of the plastic. And so I'm thinking, God, if this is doing it to the plastic, what's it doing to my arteries? So anyway.
What was the doctor's name?
Esselstyn, Esselstyn, Caldwell B. Esselstyn Jr., and his book is Prevent and Reverse Heart Disease. And he's in a movie called Forks Over Knives that's really good. He's a really nice guy. He's like in his 80s now, and he's very handsome. And he was actually an Olympic gold medal winner on I believe it was the rowing team. He's at the Cleveland Clinic, and he's still working. It's incredible. As a matter of fact, when Bill Clinton went vegan many years ago, he credited Dr. Esselstyn for his decision. So yeah.
How do you spell his name?
Essel, Essel, Styn, Styn, Dr. Esselstyn. Everybody calls him Essie, Essy. A lot of people say Esselstyn, but he's not Jewish. He's not Esselstyn. Esselstyn. His first name is Caldwell.
And on Netflix, what is the
Forks Over Knives is it's been on Netflix for like 9 years, and I think they just took it off, but Forks Over Knives is a very good one because he's in that, he stars in that movie, and they show this graphic about, it's a really interesting YouTube video is one by Dr. Nick Delgado. And if you were to put in YouTube, how to become diabetic in 6 hours, that's a very compelling video where he actually gives himself diabetes temporarily just by drinking oil. So that was kind of interesting too. But here's the thing: I don't think having a little bit of oil is going to kill you, especially if you don't have any heart disease. But if you are struggling with weight, it's a game changer to remove it. I mean, if you take out a 4,000 calorie a pound food and swap it for something less calories, you're going to lose weight. But you know, it's funny because all these diets that I look at, like the food addiction diets and Weight Watchers, they like insist that you have those 2 tablespoons a day. And yes, you need fat, but you know, have instead of having 2 tablespoons of oil, have 2 tablespoons of ground flaxseed. That's the kind of fat you need, is what's called the omega-3 fatty acids, not the omega-6 that is in the oil. And then that would be my recommendation.
Will you tell the girls about the potatoes?
I love potatoes. I just
great.
right before here, I had a lot of them. I had sweet potatoes for lunch. They're the ones that are purple on the outside. You can get them at Trader Joe's under the name Murasaki, and they taste like eating cake. They're a game changer, and I love them. I love the Japanese and the Murasaki and the Hawaiian sweet potatoes. That's usually my lunch every day, is about 1.5 pounds of sweet potatoes, either with some vegetables, or today I had a chopped salad. They're so good. You know, the longest lived people in the world, well, there's a few of them in the different blue zones, but the Okinawans in Japan, they eat most of their calories from sweet potatoes.
Wow.
Do you just bake them?
I roast them. Yeah, I use my oven setting. My oven has a setting for bake or roast, and I roast them for about an hour at 400. And I don't poke them anymore. A good friend of mine who's a chef said, no, don't poke them. Just cut a little piece off the tip on both sides, and it works very nicely.
Oh.
And then, you know, I'll eat them hot the day I cook them, but I mean, they're delicious cold. They're very satisfying, because the you know, people are so afraid of carbohydrates, especially, you know, God forbid starch, but that's how I lost all my weight. That's how all my clients lose their weight, is we eat miles and miles of starch, but we're eating it with lots and lots of vegetables. We're not just sitting there eating potatoes. We're eating it with huge amounts of salad and vegetables. And there's a doctor who's written a lot about this named Dr. John McDougall, who actually wrote a book called The Starch Solution. But a better book, in my opinion, of his was the McDougall Program for Maximum Weight Loss, which, you know, was very interesting. You know, it's funny that I know a guy, his name is Andrew Taylor, and he lives in Australia. And he made the news a couple of years ago because he literally ate nothing but potatoes for an entire year, nothing but potatoes. He lost 120 pounds and reversed all of his diseases. He was depressed, he had food addiction, and now he, you know, he writes books and he teaches that. And he did go to a doctor, and they tested everything before and after, no nutritional deficiencies after a year. I mean, he eats more than potatoes now, but you know, you don't have to eat potatoes, but in my opinion, you have to eat carbohydrate, because that's what we're supposed to do. We're not supposed to burn ketones. That's for emergency measures, like when there's no food. We're supposed to have starch, carbohydrate, but complex ones like potatoes, rice, beans, you know, winter squashes, not simple ones like sugar, flour, and alcohol. And that's why carbs get a bad name, because they're not created equally. There's a difference between the unrefined complex carbohydrates and the refined simple carbohydrates. So I'm not a fan of sugar, flour, and alcohol, especially for people trying to lose weight. I don't think they're necessarily healthy either. But the whole foods, I mean, think about what people are still eating in parts of, you know, rural Mexico and Africa. They eat the way I do. And guess what? There's no breast cancer. There's no colon cancer. There's no heart disease. Dr. Burke discovered this a long time ago. And, you know, people are always, oh, but, you know, you can't have rice. And, you know, there was another doctor. He's really interesting if you ever look him up. He's passed away, but his name is Walter Kempner, an MD at Duke University, and he pioneered what's called the rice diet. And my brother, who was obese, actually the only time he lost weight was on this diet or the Ornish diet, but he literally only gave his patients white rice, fruit juice, and sugar, and they all reversed their type 2 diabetes and got extremely lean. So carbs don't make you fat. Fat makes you fat when you mix it with the carbs. So it's the butter and the sour cream and the cheese and the bacon that you put on the potato. It's not the potato, I swear. But people, you know.
Why are potatoes so healthy? What's in a potato?
Well, I think potatoes and sweet potatoes are so healthy because, and same thing, and I'm putting winter squashes in the same category, things like kabocha, acorn, Hubbard, butternut, delicata, is because you could live on them because they actually contain vitamin A and C, in addition to all the other micronutrients and the fiber and the water. Whereas the other categories of starches, like say the grains and the legumes, while healthy, you would have to add vitamin A and C in the forms of eating fruits and vegetables to them. So it's almost like nature's perfect food in a way. You know, there's an interesting guy named Chris Voigt, and I believe his website is 20 Potatoes a Day, VOIGT. And he was the head of the Washington Potato Commission. This was many years ago. And they said that people that were on food stamps could no longer use food stamps to buy potatoes because potatoes were unhealthy, but they could use it to buy Kool-Aid and ho-ho and Kraft macaroni and cheese. And he got so mad, he went on an all potato diet for like a month, and he was still eating pretty much not only potatoes, but mostly potatoes. And he was still eating animal products and oil. And even so, he still reversed his high cholesterol, his high triglycerides, his high blood pressure. It was incredible what potatoes did for him. And there's also another case in the medical literature, if you wanted to Google the KON potato study, where a healthy young couple ate nothing but potatoes for a year. They were athletes, so they actually added oil to them because they couldn't get enough calories just eating potato. And they tested them a year later, and again, they had no nutritional deficiencies. So I don't know why potatoes get so maligned, except for the fact that they're cheap and healthy, and there's other things that are less cheap and less healthy, like animal products and dairy, that those people who have lobbyists want you to buy. You know, I had one of the most interesting interviews a couple of weeks ago. I don't know if you guys ever heard of a food politics specialist named Marion Nessel. And she's in her 80s, and she teaches at NYU, and she writes books on food policy and food politics. And she talks about how when these food companies come out with claims that you remember, like blueberries are good for your memory, well, all fruit and vegetables are. There's nothing, blueberries are delicious, eat them if you like them, but there's nothing special about a blueberry over a raspberry or a blackberry or even an apple. And so what they do is they pay these doctors and scientists to discover the outcome they've already decided they wanted. Fish high in omega-3 fatty acids. Yeah, but so are walnuts, and so are greens, and so are flax seeds. And this book will just like rock your world and change your mind when you realize that what we're taught about food isn't always the truth. You know, it's what they want us to know about their foods. And so, you know, there's things that are subsidized: corn, soy, sugar, animal products, you know, fruits and vegetables. Their advertising budget is minuscule compared to what the processed food and the industry and the animal product industry has. So they don't really stand a fighting chance.
Can I just take a moment to tell not only you, AJ, but everyone else about the new wave oven? I don't know if you've heard about it, but it's quite interesting, and I just would like to talk about it for a second. And then when we come back, I have two questions. One, do you take vitamins? And two, what would you eat during one full day? Okay? Okay. So I'm going to talk about it for just a second, and then we'll be right back. Okay. Oh, Inez. Inez.
This reminds me of some other Zoom sessions with other influencers. I was attending one where they just lost the host altogether. I mean, she just disappeared.
Hey Jay, can I just ask, have you ever watched the program The Game Changers?
Yes, I loved that movie. I loved
Isn't
it
that
so much.
fantastic?
It's one of my favorite, especially for males to watch when they think it's wimpy eating vegetables.
Exactly, and how it explains how you can get your protein from the
Absolutely.
vegetables. Yeah.
I mean, do you think I'd still be here at 60 being vegan for 43 years if I didn't get enough protein?
Exactly.
You know, I mean, elephants, the largest land mammal, they just eat plants. I cut out the middleman. I just eat the plants instead of the cow that
Sorry
eat the plants.
about technology.
Mm.
My technology is working now.
Oh, good.
Oh my gosh. I'm so glad. Well, at Grand, we wish to thank New Wave Ovens for partnering with Honey's GRANDwomen with Moxie virtual friendship hour with you, Chef AJ. This New Wave Oven Pro happens to be the winner of American Culinary Chef Best prestigious Gold Medal Award for Best Performance 8 years in a row. And it is an all-in-one solution for all of our kitchen needs. The New Wave Oven can broil, it can roast, it can grill, it can bake, it can steam, it can barbecue and dehydrate, and it can even air fry without any added fats or oil. And nearly 6 million units have been sold to date. So what I want to tell you is that independent third-party tests have proven that this New Wave Oven cooks up to 50% faster, uses up to 85% less energy when compared to a regular conventional oven, and it also produces up to 250% more fat drippings for meat and poultry, helping to support our diet and healthy living. So look in the chat for the link to get your promo code. It sounds like a perfect product, doesn't it, everyone? So now we're going to go back to Chef AJ. And thank you for listening to my little story about the New Wave Oven.
Do you have one of those?
No, but I'm going to get one. And I
don't
thought you would really be interested in
Yeah,
it.
I don't see a link in the chat to click. Did you put it in there?
Inez will.
Okay. I have something called the Breville. I wonder if it's similar, but I'll definitely check it out. So to answer your question, the only vitamin that I take, okay, well I take two, but one isn't
Okay.
because,
No, I'm listening to you.
oh, sorry, I take
Okay.
vitamin B12, and everybody that's on a plant-based diet is supposed to take that. But believe it or not, I have lots of friends that are registered dietitians and say even people that are carnivores get just as much vitamin B12 deficiency. So you don't need that much of it, but I'm the kind of person that if I don't do something every day, I just don't remember when I did it. So I take 1,000 micrograms every day, and it's called there's two kinds, cyanocobalamin and methocobalamin, and there's a big, like, people argue which is better. I don't think it matters, just take some of it. So I take that, and I take something called lysine, and that's not, I don't recommend other people take it. See, because I think that supplements are medications, and that you only take a supplement if your doctor tells you to, just like you only take a medication. I don't believe in self-diagnosing and treating. But many, many years ago, I was getting repeated cold sores. I had gotten sunburn very early in life, which led to my first cold sore. And at the time, the dermatologist said, I think you should take some lysine. And I did, and now I never got one, but I wouldn't tell other people to take it. But that is what I take. And I buy them from a company called Pure Encapsulations, because that's the brand they sell at True North, and that's all I take. And let's see, I would take vitamin D if it were low. Living in the desert, it's quite high just walking around. It's, I think, in its 60s, but I would not be opposed to doing that if my vitamin D were low. And what do I eat in a day? So if I had to break it down, I think in pounds, not servings. I eat about 3 pounds of starch, 2 pounds of vegetables, and a pound of fruit, give or take. I only eat 2 meals a day because that's all I ever ate. Even when I was 200 pounds, I just never was a breakfast eater. I've never woken up hungry in the morning, and I believe that people should really eat when they're hungry, not to the clock. I know that there are often people with certain jobs. I have clients that are operating room nurses, and it's, there are certain jobs where, like, if they don't eat, they might not get to eat. But if somebody is in control of their schedule, my feeling is eat when hungry, stop when full, and don't eat by the clock, with the exception of, I don't think it's so great to eat at night, especially late at night. It's not so good for sleep. It's not so good for digestion. I'm learning that we need about 3 to 5 hours between eating and laying down. but I've never gotten hungry in the morning, and especially because that's my time when I'm exercising. So I generally get hungry between 12 and 1 o'clock, and that's when I eat my first meal. And, literally breakfast means break fast. So I guess you could call it breakfast. But in the United States, breakfast is always, it's assumed that it's got to be sweet. It's got to be oatmeal and sweet fruit. It's got to be some kind of sweet cereal. It's got to be, muffin, donut, croissant, coffee with sugar and cream, macchiato, whatever all those caramel drinks are. So my first meal would be, so like I said, today I had a huge, and I mean huge, it's, I would say it had to weigh at least a pound. I didn't weigh it, but I have a chopped salad that I make every week, and I keep it in a Tupperware, and it's got 2 kinds of cabbage, purple and green. It's got carrots. It's got mixed greens in it, and I add to it, I like things a little spicy, so I add a little bit of chopped jalapeno and some marinated red onions, and I had my lemon poppy seed dressing. And what I love to do is I love to eat with my hands, but salad with your hands is kind of messy. So Trader Joe's have these things called jicama wraps or jicama tortillas, and they're literally very thinly shaved pieces of jicama, but you can wrap them up just like a taco, and they're a lot less calorically dense. Corn tortillas are about 1,100 calories a pound, or 60 calories per tortilla. These have about 7 calories. I could eat the whole container, and it's like nothing. And so I like to put my salad in and eat my salad like little tacos. And then I had my, oh, look, it's a doggy. I love doggies. And I had, it's a Doberman or a Doberwoman.
Yep.
I had I had my Japanese sweet potatoes, and then my dog always begs for these, so we shared those. And so I finished eating at about 1:45 today, so I probably will not get hungry till about 6. I'm guessing 6 or 6:30, and I know what we're having for dinner because I have another presentation from 5 to 6. I'm going to make rice in the rice cooker. And what I love to do is I love to mix my grains, because I actually like white rice, which I know isn't the healthiest, and my husband likes brown rice. So to make everybody happy, I put in a third white, a third brown, and a third of another grain like wild rice, which is technically a grass. And then I'll make that as the grain, and then we're just going to have some steamed vegetables. And I'm working on some new recipes, so some chutney recipes. So we'll have it with that as our sauce. And then if I want dessert, I usually will have something like fruit or ice cream made from fruit. So I have a machine called a Champion Juicer. If you ever saw my YouTubes, you could see the one from a few weeks ago where I show you take frozen fruit like bananas, it could be cherries, mango, it doesn't matter. And then you run it through this machine, and you don't need to add any liquid, and it comes out like the consistency of soft serve or sorbet. So we'll have that for dessert, or just fruit. Or I'll make little treats out of things like fruit and oats, no sugar, no flour, just mixing fruit and oats and baking it. So I might have something like that, a small piece. It's funny because even though I was a sugar addict for 43 years, I like savory food better now. For the most part, I'm not, I still like fruit, but I'm not as interested in dessert and sweets. I need something that's more sticking to my ribs, like the potatoes, like the sweet potatoes. So that would be an example of today. Lunch, I generally don't change lunch up that much because I'm busy and I don't have that much time. So it's either the salad and the sweet potatoes, or another thing I love is another kind of potato, which is called a Hana yam, which is a little bit different. Hana yam is sort of like a cross between a sweet potato and a Yukon Gold. It's less sweet than, say, the Japanese sweet potato, but more sweet than a Yukon Gold. And they're very, very creamy. They have like a subtle vanilla flavor. So that with broccoli would be my lunch on the days I don't have salad and sweet potatoes. But I keep it simple because I don't have a lot of time at lunch. Dinner, I get a little bit more creative. Like last night we had bean burgers, and I make a big batch. See, I'm a real big fan of batch cooking and food prep. So we'll have them. I don't eat bread. My husband does. So I'll put mine in lettuce cups with tomato and onion, things like that. And I love making soups, stews, and chilies in my Instant Pot, eating some and freezing some and having that, several times a week. And probably my favorite meal is fries. And I love just taking either Yukon Gold or red potatoes or russets and cutting them into fry shapes and putting them in this machine I have called the Breville air fryer. And they're crunchy and they're yummy. And of course, having it with something like a vegetable or a salad. But so starch and vegetables are my main source. I eat most of my calories from starch, but most of my volume comes from vegetables. And then I do also enjoy fruit, but give me starch, baby. That's what makes me full, happy, and satisfied. There was a book written a long time ago called Potatoes Not Prozac, where Dr. de Maison talked about how there's something in the starch or in the potatoes and sweet potatoes that just make us feel really good.
Is that true for all people and everybody's DNA? I mean, would all of this work depending on your body type?
I don't want to say absolutes because there's always going to be one person for whom it didn't work, but I
Yeah.
can just tell you that, when I talk to people like Dr. Ellen Goldhammer or Dr. McDougall, who in the last 40 years, they've seen over like 30,000 patients, they've never not seen it work. You know what I mean? And I'm sure that, if somebody is got some kind of metabolic disease, like a really bad diabetes, eating a bunch of white potatoes is probably not the best thing, but there are other starches they can eat, like beans. Beans are so good for people with diabetes because they're a resistant starch, beans and grains. So I would say that the way I eat may not be right for everyone, but some form of a plant-based diet, I believe, can be right for everyone. And that's where there's going to be individual genetic differences. And that's why, I always say I'm so happy because I finally found what's called a lifestyle medicine doctor. And that is a medical doctor that is not just whatever their specialty, but they're certified in a new type of medicine called lifestyle medicine, which has 4 pillars: diet, sleep, exercise, and connection. And when you go to a lifestyle medicine doctor, it's 45 minutes for your appointment because they actually talk to you. They ask you what you eat. They ask you what you do. It's like mind blowing. And I finally found one, and he'll see anybody through telemedicine anywhere in the United States. But I'm so fortunate because he's only about 35 minutes away from he's in Riverside. So it's not that far from where you would be in the desert to see him. So yeah.
So do you know of these type of doctors in different cities?
Yeah, it's so funny that because last night I did a late YouTube at 6 o'clock, so it'll be 2 videos from the most recent one, and it's called "Why You Need a Lifestyle Medicine Doctor." And in the show notes on YouTube, I put all the links. So there's places to find these type of doctors, and I did put that actually in the show notes. So yeah, there's websites like that you can find. A lifestyle medicine has its own website where you can find a lifestyle medicine doctor.
No, but I would trust you.
Yeah, well, it's so funny, Susan, because because of the pandemic, I found Dr. Dysinger. So I had heard of Dr. Dysinger for years because he headed the lifestyle medicine clinic in Loma Linda, but I didn't want to drive all the way to Loma Linda. And I didn't know he went out on his own much closer in Riverside. But I was wearing, we wear masks here. It's the law, at least in California. And I was at Trader Joe's shopping, and I went into the parking lot. And so I had my mask custom made, and it says vegan since 1977. And so I was walking to my car, and this a lady who's a little bit older than me said, "Oh, are you vegan?" I'm like, "Yeah." She goes, "Oh, I am too." And we started chatting. "Do you live here?" And I go, "Well, do you know a good doctor?" And she goes, "Oh, I see Dr. Wayne Dysinger." And I'm like, "Really?" He's he had, so it was because of the pandemic and the mask that I found out that this guy that I've always admired was now a lot closer and in business for himself, that if he would take insurance, I didn't have to go to the hospital to see him. So yeah, it was very, very, very exciting. And my husband switched over to him too. And, he gives you his cell phone number, and every week there's classes if you want to take them at lifestyle classes. Every Tuesday they do the lady does a cooking demo. And on Thursdays they do like one of these chats with all the patients. And yeah, it's such a different experience than going to your regular.
What's his name spelled?
Dysinger, I could probably type it in the chat right here, but he will do telemedicine anywhere in the United States. He can't do it out of the United States. When Dysinger, and
How does he, if he does telemedicine, how does he check you?
well, no, so if you live close enough, you go.
Yeah.
But for people that want to consult for this kind of medicine, especially if they can't find a doctor, but we did go for our first appointment. He said, "No, if you live somewhere where you can get to me, I want to see you at least once in the office." And if I was like sick, then I would go too. I mean, I still kept a doctor at Eisenhower for emergencies, but it's just so different when like he writes you, and it's just a nice feeling to have somebody like that,
I think you're right.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's very good. Yeah. And
How about
hopefully,
avocados? Do you eat
I
avocados?
don't eat a lot of fat because I find that for me, there's something about fat that fat and sugar when I eat, and salt too. The more I eat, the more I want. And so people don't understand that there's actually fat in all food. So even if you didn't, like if I was going to eat fat, that would be the kind I much prefer it then to olive oil. But people don't even realize that green vegetables have about 3% of their calories as fat, and that oats about 20%. But of all the fatty foods, the avocado would be the one I would probably gravitate towards the most, because again, lower in calorie density, 750, whereas nuts are about 3,200. And I just can't moderate when something is like really, really delicious. I don't have an off switch. So they say a serving of avocado is a fifth, but who can cut it into 5 places and eat one? And I can't do that. I've never been good at that, Never been good at moderation.
The other day I had 17 grams of walnuts, and I was like, is that a first in my life or what? I mean, who eat, that's about half an ounce, right? So I was like, oh my God, it's a miracle, because normally I can't have them in the house even though they're healthy. But hey, I want to say a couple things. You were talking about batch cooking, everyone. These are some of the Japanese roasted potatoes. They freeze really well. And I also wanted to thank you, Chef AJ, because I'm a daughter of a librarian, but you said in one of your podcasts, you can request a title, and I never knew that. So, the Forks Over Knives, like I finally just heard about it. You're right. It's been on Netflix forever. I heard about it like the month before they took it off, of course. And so, but I went on my library. My library happens to have that. So if anyone wants to see it, Forks Over Knives, that's the one with that has Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn. But you can request it from your library. So you have like just changed my life in a number of ways.
Oh, yeah.
But
Well,
you can
thank
request
you.
it. And I also checked for your book, and they have it, so I didn't have to request it. But then I went in, I used to be from Berkeley, California, now I'm in Portland. So I went on, I still have my library membership. I went in and requested your book. So you'll be brought to Berkeley.
That is amazing. Yeah, because like a lot of people will say, oh, I can't afford your book, even though like on Kindle, it's like $7.99. And it's like, have you asked your library? Oh, no. But yeah, I can't vouch for every city in the United States, but most cities, there is a form you can get online, and they have, if it's in circulation, they kind of have to get it for you.
Yeah, otherwise you can see Forks on Knives. We actually bought it because we also wanted to support them on Amazon Prime, just for everyone. But I really recommend it. It's easy to watch. It's like a good sequence is the game changers get pumped up, like, yeah, make me strong. Then Forks Over Knives. And then maybe What the Health. It's kind of like levels of like drilling down on those documentaries, I think.
And Forks Over Knives was probably the first of all the documentaries. It's only 87 minutes. It just depends what your interest is. Because if your really main concern is for the environment, there's one called Cowspiracy that you might like, but if it's more of your health, definitely What the Health, Eating You Alive, or Forks Over Knives. If you're concerned.
Forks Over Knives, is that a book or
They do have a series of books now, but it came out in 2011 as an 87-minute documentary. That's very good. Yeah, it's an easy one to watch because it doesn't have any graphic animal things. I mean, there are ones like Earthlings that do, but this is just about the science of plant-based nutrition, and it's good. It's easy to watch.
Yeah, we wanted to we need to watch ones like Cowspiracy, but I just can't bear it. So this is a good entry point when you can't watch those really terrible ones. And his son Rip has his podcast Plant Strong. I don't know if you've been on there yet.
Supposedly he was going to invite me, but he never did. Write him and tell him he's going to be on mine. Yeah, he needs to have me on him, doesn't he?
I know.
Oh, that's funny.
Forks Over Knives also have a website you can subscribe to, and they send you recipes and information constantly.
That's nice.
Oh, cool.
What's it called?
Forks Over Knives.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they have a big. Yeah, there's they have a Facebook group with like 1 million people or something like that.
Oh
yeah.
my gosh. Oh, wow.
Yeah, they have nice recipes.
I had another question. A doctor once told me that I should regulate my diet and only have like 25 grams of carbs a day. Is that like?
Well, that's the thing. Okay, so first of all, I don't know what kind of doctor it was, and I don't know if you have diabetes or things like that or pre-diabetes, and I'm not a doctor, but low carb is a way that some people use to overcome some of these diseases, and it does definitely work. But from my understanding is that even though you gain short-term benefits from a low carb diet in that, you can reverse diabetes and lose weight, long-term, it's not the best solution, and that you end up mortgaging your health. So doctors really don't get very much nutritional training in medical school. And that's why I recommend somebody that is a lifestyle medicine doctor, because that's all they have done to get their specialty is this new specialty called lifestyle medicine. I think most people don't want to go plant-based. And so therefore, carbs. I mean, let's see, 4 calories a gram. So I would get about a pound of salad, and then what would I eat the rest of the day as a vegan? I'd have nothing. There'd be nothing. I'd get 100 calories a day. So, you know, I think for that's what our ancestors ate. Our ancestors weren't keto.
Mhm.
They ate tubers, roots, and shoots. They ate, you know, they were hunter gatherers, but they didn't have meat every single day. They had, when they could get a kill, they ate the weak, the slow, the isolated, the injured, the sick. There was no refrigeration, so they it's not like they had, you know, cheese or cheese pizzas in there. There were no freezers. So that's what the women spent all day digging for tubers, and they would cook them at night. So that's what I think we're meant to eat is carbohydrate. I know that for me, it's a lot more satisfying. I never cared much for meat, so it wasn't a big loss to not eat it. One of the things I'd say is that the dairy is probably something that nobody really should be eating, but you know, I mean, again, this isn't coming from my opinion. It's just coming from science, like books like the China Study, things like that. So everybody's got to
tell us why none of us should eat dairy.
Well, think about it. What animal in the world ever drinks milk after maturity other than a human? Nobody. We're not supposed to. There's only one person you should be drinking the milk of, and that's your biological mother, or, you know, donated breast milk. I mean, we don't need cow's milk any more than we need yak milk or monkey milk or dog milk. Milk is intended for the baby of that species. So if you're drinking cow's milk, what's happening to the baby? They're becoming veal. I mean, and even people that eat meat, like Julia Childs said, she would, if she had known, she would never have supported such a horrific industry. You know, watch a video and see what happens when they take the calf away from the cow. You'll never drink milk again.
I don't drink milk.
Yeah.
And
So
I wonder if I should, because
We need
they say it has
calcium.
calcium.
Right, we need calcium. So I've been told by an endocrinologist to drink almond milk, for example. I use that as a substitute.
Yeah, almond milk is great. Any kind of milk: almond, cashew, soy, hemp, flax, quinoa, oat. What else they have? Rice milk. You can make your own very, very easily. You know.
Yeah, right.
But think about it. Cow's milk is to get a baby calf to be 800 pounds in a year. So we're not supposed to be drinking milk of another species. How that ever started is beyond me. But again, marketing triumph. It's like olive oil, a triumph of marketing over science. I mean, whoever thought? The only thing I can think of is maybe they couldn't get all the water was contaminated or something, and they needed liquid. But whoever was that first person to just go into a cow's dirty udder and start drinking it? It's just, I don't know. I just think it's gross.
And
I was allergic to it. So.
Does that apply to cheese as well?
Well, if you really want to know the truth about cheese, there's 2 wonderful books by Dr. Neil Barnard. One is called The Cheese Trap, and one is called Your Body in Balance. And so one of the reasons it's very hard for people to stop ingesting cheese is because of the fact that the dairy and protein, the protein in dairy is called casein. And when you ingest it or concentrate it in the form of making like cheese, yogurt, or ice cream, it turns into these compounds in the brain called casomorphins that are like these feel-good chemicals. And that's why people have such a hard time eating cheeses. But you can make cheeses now out of nuts, for example, oats. There's a whole thing called Miyoko's Creamery, where she has like this artisan line of cheeses that's amazing, you know? Miyoko's Creamery. You can get it in many of the Whole Foods.
So are the best foods for calcium?
Greens. Whatever the question, greens are the answer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All the greens.
Tahini has a lot of calcium. Beans, lentils. Tahini is sesame seed paste, so that's very good. But green, you know, really up your greens, up your veggies in general, and your greens in particular for calcium.
And I think upping our greens is a good way to say au revoir for today. I'm sure everybody enjoyed you as much as I did. I have no doubt. I can't thank you enough. I so appreciate you educating us. And I want to tell everyone that we're going to put up on the screen where you can find Chef AJ. So it's up now. and either take a picture with your camera or copy things. We also, I will put it on Grand for you also. Because to leave and not be able to be in touch with you is not, we don't want to do that.
Oh, thank
We
you.
want to follow you and learn from you.
Thanks. All right. I guess bye.
So I'll be in touch with you.
Thank you.
And thank you so much, and be well, be safe, enjoy
Thank you.
life.
All
I
right.
know you are, and keep helping all of us stay well.
Thanks. Eat your greens.
We
Take
will.
care, everybody.
We will.
Thanks.